Testing. I apologize for my tardiness. I will sit in the corner when I get home for 10 minutes. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a salute to the flag.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Put the right glasses on. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing notice with the Township Clerk. The meeting was scheduled Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. The board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recordings to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Thank you, Joe. Roll call.
Ms. Burns?
Here.
Ms. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Giordano? Ms. Lent?
Present.
Mr. Marqueta? Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Solikowski?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Quorum exists.
Okay. All right. Code of Ethics Corner, one of the board members would like to read that? If not, for next week, okay.
You can get the volunteer now.
Yeah. Don't answer, I'll do it a little later. All right, so on to the action items. All right, now, we are strictly for the public for this. This is an action item.
That's an action, but we're not there yet.
No, I know, when we get there.
Yep.
Okay. Anything on the items under item 8? You care to refer to?
We do have under Superintendent's report, we do have our Auditor's report, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Mara at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Citadino. I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael Pennell from our auditing firm, Samuel Klein & Company. He will do a presentation on the audit, or the comprehensive annual financial report, or the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Each member of the board has a copy of the synopsis of the audit, and they also have a copy of the C1 document, which is actually the budget and the expenditures for that year, which Mike will be referring to. It's all yours, Mike. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and well. I'd like to begin by thanking Joe and his staff for their cooperation during the audit. As always, it's a pleasure working in the Old Bridge School District. Not everyone is familiar with the work that goes into an audit, so I'd like to take this time to explain the process. Each year, the board appoints an independent auditor to perform their audit. This is a requirement by the New Jersey Department of Education. My company is a licensed firm with the state and approved to perform school board audits. My firm was founded in 1921, and I've been with them for over 25 years. Usually, at the conclusion of the school year, we'll schedule a meeting with Joe and his staff to discuss the upcoming audit. It is also at this time that the state will release their school audit program. These are the requirements and audit procedures that must be followed in order to comply with state regulations. The requirements are divided into two sections, compliance and reporting. I'll go through some of the compliance testing and the reporting format of the audit. Our audit testing is based on samples. I'd just like to note, an audit is not 100% verification. We couldn't possibly test every piece of papers that comes out of the district, so we rely on the samples and the results of those samples to give our conclusions on the overall basis for the audit. So next, I'd like to just go over the school audit program. It's roughly, if you were to print it out, you can find it on the New Jersey Department State website. It's about this thick with all the requirements and everything we need to follow. The first section is general compliance, and the first thing we usually need to look at are the minutes of the board. We'll go through to make sure that the minutes are complete, they're updated, and they've been approved at the prior meeting. Next thing we have to look at is the application for state school aid. This is the count that's taken every October 15th, and based on the numbers, this is how the state calculates your state aid. Next thing we need to look at is your budget and the transfers. We'll go through your budget to make sure that there aren't any over expenditures. Your budget transfers are approved, and everything else is approved to the guidelines. Next thing we need to look at under general compliance are bids, contracts, and purchasing. We'll sample bids just to make sure they're complete and they were conducted properly. Next thing we look at are expenditures. We will pull a sample of purchase orders to make sure that proper support is attached, that the state is very specific on their chart of accounts. You need to follow this chart of accounts to a T, and that's one of the things we need to look for. We also make sure that bills and claims are approved at your board meeting. And then finally, we have to do year-end procedures. So any type of audit adjustment entries we might come across, we have to sit down with the finance department and give them those entries so they could post them to their ledgers, and they could do a rollover, and those balances will be in agreement with the audited balances. The second type of compliance is specific compliance. These pertain to each individual fund. School boards are made up of different funds, and I'll just go over the ones that apply to the Oak Ridge School District. Fund 10 is your general fund. That's your main operating fund. The first thing they want you to look at are your board secretary and treasurer's reports. And also with this are your cash reconciliations. Got to make sure everything is in agreement and everything looks good. Second thing are revenues and receipts. What we look at here is to make sure that your state aid is recorded properly and it agrees to the state classification. So we'll look at that. We'll also look at district taxes to make sure that you received all the taxes from the town. Next thing is compensation reporting, which is our payroll testing. We'll sample employees to make sure contracts are in agreement, and we'll also test the 5 salary employees in the town. I'm sorry, at the school board, and we'll also verify employee salaries in the payroll department. Also, as part of our payroll testing, we'll verify pensionable wages to make sure that employees are getting credit for their pension, and that the pension reports are being filed on time. We also look at the health insurance withholdings to make sure those are calculated correctly. And then we'll also go through all the fund balance appropriations to make sure that they've been classified correctly between capital reserve, excess surplus, and just to make sure that everything is in line. And then finally, for the general fund is we make sure that the 2 state aid payments are classified as a receivable, and then we'll verify that they did come in during the month of July. The next fund is Fund 20, Special Revenue Fund. These are where you record your restricted state aids. These are your title grants, Title I, Title II grants are recorded here. Your Chapter 192, 193 grants are here, your IDEA, and also any local funding from any type of businesses that might give $500, a couple dollars for a particular cause. So we will verify that all receipts and disbursements are going through this fund. The next one is Fund 30, which are capital projects. These are where all the construction projects of the district are recorded. So anytime the district does like a bond authorization, like when they built the high school, it had to go through Fund 30 here. And also if they receive any school development authority grants from the state, they have to be accounted for here. So if in any particular year any of these projects are performed, we make sure that they're in Fund 30. The next fund is Fund 40, which is your debt service fund. This is where we verify that any school, any district taxes for debt service are recorded here, and this is where the payment of bond principal and bond interest are. When you do all the projects, if you go out for a bond sale, this is how you pay it back through Fund 40. Next is Fund 60. This is your enterprise fund, also known as your food service fund. Anything related to the food service account has to go through Fund 60. Receipts for daily sales we look at, child nutrition program requirements, the reimbursement for free, reduced or paid lunches. We'll verify that on a test basis, and just to make sure everything is being accounted for correctly. And finally, we have student activities. We'll request that the finance department call in all the student activity accounts, and we'll verify that the expenditures in these accounts are for student-related activities, like for field trips, or if they have bake sales. We'll make sure that they're on a test basis, that these funds are for the students and not spent on other items. Finally, there's capital assets. We'll make sure that the district is recording them correctly. We look at long-term liabilities. Those are compensated absences. Any lease payments are recorded correctly. And then finally, we have the single audit. Single audit is a separate grant audit that we have to perform, and it's based on $750,000 in grant expenditures for federal and state. If that's the case, then there's a whole separate audit that needs to be performed on grants. We have to do a federal and a state determination worksheet, and based on that worksheet, it'll let us know what grants we need to test. So then there's more testing we'll need to do, and it's a whole complete separate report that has to be filed with the federal government. Finally, reporting with the state. The report has to be in two forms. There's a CAFRA, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and then there's a management report. And within the CAFRA, each fund has to have a certain section. If it's not filed correctly, the state will kick it back, and you have to make those corrections. And then finally, after all that, you still need to do an audit summary worksheet. And what that is, you have to take the audit, and all the data you have to upload through the state homeroom. And that's needed for budgeting purposes. So, and the audit is not considered complete until you file the audit sum as well. So after all that, that process usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months to complete. And sometimes longer, and in this particular case, it went to March. The state was late getting us pertinent information to include in the audit, and that's why for the delay. Usually the audit's due December 5th, but in this case it's actually due today, March 15th. And the state wouldn't allow anybody to submit the audits unless they had this information in it. So So I'm happy to say that deadline was met and all the audits were filed with the federal, state, and county local agencies. As I said before, the audit's comprised of two reports. There's the comprehensive annual financial report and the management report. CAFR will contain all the financial exhibits and the notes to the financial. And the management report contains any audit findings, recommendations, as well as some supplemental exhibits. And I'm pleased to report this year that there are no recommendations again. Nothing came to our attention during the audit that had any material effect on the financial statements that would have warranted an audit recommendation. Next, I'd like to go over the financial position of the district. The district began the year with a total fund balance of $28,204,735.05. During the year, the district generated $7,113,979.28 in surplus, resulting in a total fund balance of $35,318,714.33 as of June 30th, 2021. This is an increase of roughly 25% over the previous year. That balance is comprised of the following reserves. $8,048,891 is assigned and has been designated to support the 21-22 budget. There's $4,816,129.85 designated as excess surplus. The next three reserve balances were all established by board resolution and are for specific purposes. There is $6,075,396.16 designated for capital reserve projects. These are projects that can be funded that are in your long-range facility plan. And again, like I stated before, must be accounted for in Fund 30, your capital projects account. There is $1 million designated in the emergency reserve fund. This fund is for unforeseen expenses, and it must be county approved in order to be used. There's $6,945,030.02 designated in the maintenance reserve fund, and this money can be used for required maintenance throughout the district. There's also $203,946.79 committed to year-end encumbrances. And something new this year is they moved the unemployment account from a trust account into the general fund. So now we got to pick up that piece in Fund 10, and that amount is $607,196.41. And then finally, there's your unassigned fund balance, which is $7,610,317.67. This was known as your 2% or the max that the district can keep in reserve, but for this particular year, it was bumped up to 4% due to the financial impacts of the public health emergency. In summary, the district continues to maintain or increase reserve balances as compared to previous years. Thank you.
Mike, I just have two questions.
Sure.
So when you complete the audit and you've determined that the district has unspent funds, the district can, by resolution, put those funds into capital reserve, maintenance reserve, or emergency reserve. Any funds that are still available may be set aside in the unrestricted fund balance up to a certain limit. And then normally that's 2%. The governor for these 2 years has increased that to 4%. Please explain to the public what happens to any funds that exceed that amount.
Well, there's a calculation we need to do. It's called the excess surplus calculation. And after you take all the restricted fund balances into consideration, anything over and above that 4% gets returned back to the taxpayers in the previous year. So any excess fund balance this year automatically will go back in the 22-23 budget.
Okay, so it effectively becomes a revenue item in that particular year, and the district does not have any authority to maintain those funds beyond that particular year, correct?
Correct, yes. It's legally restricted to be returned as part of surplus.
Okay. And the second question I'd like to ask just relates to the testing that you do of the enrollment figures, the ASSA. Can you just go a little bit more into detail to tell the audience how we...
Sure. Based on the enrollment in the district, what we do is, again, through the audit program, they'll give us a sample of how many students we have to verify. So we'll go into the registers, we make sure that there's backup work papers, that these students do exist, and we'll verify them through that. And then we also have to verify low-income students with lunch applications. We look at students sent to private schools to make sure there's tuition contracts on file. We look at, there's also a part for transportation. We'll make sure that students match up to transportation reports. So it's a long process to, usually takes a few days to complete.
And that part, the audit of the ASSA or the enrollment, that happens at a different time of the year, correct?
Well, that count is taken on October 15th, but we do verify it when we do come in for the audit.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Board members, any questions?
I just want to, just a clarification for the audience and people at home. So just clarification, your agency is not affiliated with the Old Bridge School District. You are an independent.
Correct,
okay.
yes, we're an independent accounting firm registered with the state of New Jersey to conduct audits.
And this year, we're happy to say there's no findings.
Correct, no findings this
Do you
year.
remember the last time you did have findings?
I think it was before Joe got here, maybe. Yeah,
Almost like 10 years ago.
probably, yeah, about 10 years ago, we had an issue with the, it was in student activity funds. And I remember sitting down with Joe and CJ, and we developed a plan, and I believe they get sent to CJ periodically for her review to make sure everything is in line.
Yes. So since that team has been put together, they've been doing a great job, and I just wanted that recognized. That's been going on for a long time. We've been able to have no findings for almost 10 years, so thank you.
Correct, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Can I just say one thing? Each member of the board has received a 300-page comprehensive annual financial report. You can take that home if you'd like, or you can return it to me at the end of the meeting, and we will send you a digital copy if you prefer. Thank you.
I just have it's not really progress towards goals, but just a brief announcement. So, it's always a great time of the year outside today. Spring sports have begun. Students are outside enjoying themselves and their activities that they look forward to. And I think I saw a lot of staff members out there. It's always a good time to reminder that as the weather gets warmer, we start moving towards those spring activities and the conclusion of another successful school year. I do want to say that in the past week or so, that as a district, as we think about how fortunate we are, we look at war-torn Ukraine, that as a district, we have taken in 3 Ukrainian refugees into our school across 3 different grade levels. It's something that's probably going to increase as the impacts of the war go on. And I do want to point out these lovely candles that have been crafted through our ELL program with their students and their staff. I think Nicole Engelbos makes these, and then they're delivered by Ms. Fuentes, and all under the direction of Madame Keeler. So they're doing a great job with this and working with the students. And the funds, I think they're $5 a piece. Let me just check my notes. Yes, $5 a piece, and the funds go towards supporting our Ukrainian students and their Ukrainian community, which is very rich and thriving here in Old Bridge. Thank you.
Mr. Citadino, I'm sorry, how do we purchase them, the candles? I didn't hear you.
I'm going to put Ms. Keeler on the spot. Ms. Keeler, can you go to the paper? Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. If you are interested in purchasing them, I believe we still have a few left, and you could email Ms. Fuentes at bfuentes, Fuentes, at obps.org, and whatever she has left, she'll be happy to share with you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda items only.
All right, I will open it to hearing of the residents on agenda items only. Seeing no hands, I will close that session, and we'll move through the agenda. Missing on policy. Curriculum and professional development. Any discussion? Internship for Karina Lizio, Child Study Team, and at Carpenter School. No discussion. Nothing listed under athletics, and we do have an action item now, number one, which is of this group, and that is for finance. Board members have any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call.
Oh, you need a motion.
I need a motion first, obviously.
Lent will move it.
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call, Joe?
Yes, just one thing. Whenever a board member receives a reimbursement, it's not necessary for them to abstain from the vote. Typically, we'll just list them as abstaining from that vote, and that is the case for this particular vote.
All right.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Sulikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Callie?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Are there any questions on items 2 through 19 by the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. Roman numeral 19, non-certificated personnel. Items 1 and 2. Matt, you will read the retirement things at the meeting?
Yes, what we're going to do next week, there's retirees under 3 sections. Non-certified personnel office, non-certified personnel operational, and certified personnel. I'll go over all this next week. 5 people are retiring with over 100 years. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Item 20, non-certificated personnel operational. Any discussion? Moving on, item 21, non-certificated personnel. Items 1 through 5. Hearing no discussion, we'll move on. Certificated personnel, items 1 through, my fingers, 17.
And you have action on number 1.
Yeah, and there is action on item. Move the board approve and extend.
Which is number 1.
Yeah. I'll accept a motion on item number 1.
Lent will move it.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Callie?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Ms. Lent?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Sulikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Any discussion on non-certified, certificated personnel transportation? Items 1 and 2. Hearing none, we'll move on to transportation. Items 1 and 2, any discussion? Per the attachment E1. Hearing none, we'll move on. Supplies, equipment, and services, Roman numeral section 25, items 1 through 7. Is there any discussion from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. And miscellaneous, items 1 through 5. Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. Board secretary and business, items 27, items 1 through 1. That's it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on. And now we're going to open the hearing of residents.
Yes.
We will open it to the public for hearing of residents on any school district issue.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diane Michael, and this is... And we're speaking on behalf of SEPTA tonight. We just want to remind everybody that April 3rd, SEPTA is hosting the Harlem Wizards versus Team We Are One. If you haven't heard about it, get your tickets. We've sold out quite a few levels already, right? And I don't know if we'll be able to sell tickets at the door if they keep selling at this speed. So get your tickets.
We have a good starting lineup. Lots of team players. Thank you all.
So all the proceeds from this game, we're going to distribute them throughout the district, so it'll be district-wide, for all the programs that are working on diversity and inclusion in our district of Old Bridge. We'd also like to thank the community for our sponsorships. We've had, how many have we had?
We've had about 15 sponsorships so far.
Yeah, so the community's been really good to SEPTA. So come on out April 3rd. It's going to be a really good time. 4 o'clock.
Thank you very much, and we hope it's a big sellout. Is there anyone else? I'll close the hearing of the public. Is there any old business the board would care to discuss?
I would like to request, I'm not really sure how to word this, but the New Jersey Coalition for Inclusive Education has like a seminar that we could do called Demystifying Inclusion. I was wondering if we could set something up either through administration or how we could go about making sure that our board has access to this kind of training. Is that, I had run this through Mr. Parton, so this way I worded it correctly. Is that okay, Mr. Parton?
Yes. You're just introducing it for the administration to see if it's an opportunity that they could bring to Old Bridge, essentially. This would not be board action. This is a discussion of a possible opportunity. So Dr. Tu and Mr. Cittadino would be the people to respond or to coordinate anything if that's a possibility.
I just want to be clear, because I may have misheard. Is your intention for this to be for the staff to attend the trainings or the Board of Education to attend the trainings?
I was hoping the Board of Education would be able to attend. It's under their parent education programs, so I was hoping we could utilize it through that way.
Your direction, Mr. Parton. I can direct and authorize staff members to attend PD. I cannot direct and staff board members to attend PD.
Right. This would not be a mandatory board member training. Certainly, it would not be a mandatory parental training. We don't do that in New Jersey yet. But it could be a opportunity that you present as a school district. You do this with other things, so there would be nothing wrong with offering it, but it would be an offering, not a requirement, certainly for anybody who's involved.
Teresa? This is very loud. I'm sorry. Mrs. Burns. Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your ears out. I'm just wondering, because I think I understand, you know, what you're getting at. You know, you would like the board members to understand more about inclusion. I think that's what you're, what I'm wondering is maybe we can reach out as a board training to our New Jersey School Boards rep and see if, Mary Ann Friedman, and see if she has any programs through New Jersey School Boards that would benefit us, because I don't believe we pay for that, I'm not sure. But maybe we can reach out to Mary Ann Friedman and see if there's something, because I know we need, everyone should be taking their board training, you know, year 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th year. But I know that when she does, you know, as a certified board member, you have to take extra training. So I'm wondering if maybe we can reach out to her. What do you think about that?
Would that be mandatory then if we go that route?
No, it still wouldn't be mandatory. Your governance 1, 2, and 3 and other things that are required by the SBA are pretty limited. There are other educational opportunities for board members, certainly, and training and professional development, but this would not be required by the SBA.
Would parents also have access to that training?
Usually, the New Jersey School Boards Association presents exclusively to boards. You could inquire with them and see if that is a possibility, just like you could, in theory, inquire with this coalition and see if they could do something that's open to everybody.
So I would suggest, like, as a superintendent, to share the information with me. We'll take a look at it and see where it fits into our administrative training. And again, I'm not sure if it's online training, if it's in-person training. We can see how we can make it available for all staff for PD credit. Anything you'd like to do with that.
Okay. How would we go about requesting training from our school board rep?
You can just give her a call.
You can reach out to her.
Yeah. I can put you in touch with her, Teresa. I have her number.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Burns, you gave me a copy of the description of the program. Maybe every board member should get a copy of this. So all I'm going to do is give this to our business administrator, and Ms. Torrey will make copies for everybody. This way they can get an insight of it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea, Mrs. Burns. I think it's definitely something we should pursue. I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you for presenting it.
I agree.
Is there any other old business from the board? If not, does anyone have anything to offer for new business from the board?
I do. I had quite a few community members reach out to me, and one in particular. They, with the question as to looking into the possibility of naming the press box after Mr. Mazzola. But I think you may already be looking into that.
Just like we did last time with the Bob DeMarco Stadium at Lombardi Field, I believe Mr. Domino is putting together a little packet of information for the board to present at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for new business? If not, I will...
Does the board want to discuss, because you'll take action on it next week, did you want to look at the calendar that was presented to the board? I emailed you a heads up on it last Friday, but there is a calendar recommendation in here that came out of Instructional Council Calendar Committee. It's the back page of the attachments, and I believe loosely in your folder you had one that is not my recommendation. That also came out of Calendar Committee. They usually give us two. I'll take a look at them and then make a recommendation to the board. This would be for the, we always we're staying another year ahead now. In future years, as parents start to really rely upon the calendar for college visits, family vacations, and so forth. So we like to stay ahead of it so individuals can plan. So this is for the 23-24 school year, believe it or not. And this was the recommendation coming out of the committee. It has school starting for staff and students, for staff in-service training on the 5th and 6th of September, with students returning on the 7th of September for that year. There would be the last day of school with 2 snow days built in, emergency closing days built in, would be on the 21st, a Friday. Again, if we didn't use those days, it would then be on the 19th as a Wednesday. And the one thing that is the change in this calendar is that usually the 3rd in-service day in past years has been on Election Day, but that would truly be a day off as a federal holiday, a state and federal holiday this year without an in-service, and then move to June 4th. It allows us to take advantage of some training that staff would need coming into the 2024-25 school year, but it also is reflective of new legislation that impacts schools, but it is not well thought out when they think of legislation because they don't ask the schools what would better serve them. So there's recent legislation that has come through New Jersey that was approved that police officers, anyone wearing a police uniform, cannot be within 100 feet of a polling place. Now, in communities where you don't use schools as polling places, that's not a big problem. But anyone who visits our schools knows that our school security staff is majority made up of uniformed police officers. So any school that had a polling place would not be able to have any of our security presence at the school on the day of an election. Why I think that's alarming and not wise is you're actually advertising to the public, hey, there's going to be no police officers at this school on this day. This may be a good day to come by if you have ill intention. It is also mine, and the primaries are pretty, tame, but I think during elections you do want to have security in schools. You do want to have, as people from the public who are not part of the school community come into the schools, we use police officers a lot of times as our buffer between the 2 locations to make sure that anybody from the public is not wandering into any of the student populated areas. So this change is in reaction to this. So for this year's primary, it may cause us to be a little more creative in June because the law takes effect as of January, and we do have a snow day left that may impact us in June. But again, that's going to have to be a decision we make for the best security of our students and staff. So this is the recommendation of the calendar based upon those findings in that legislation.
Polling place, having worked at a lot of polls over the years, is the entrance to the polling office, which is usually a single door in the school. Now, if a patrol car were outside the 100-foot area of that, you would have a police in an early response position. And obviously, you could coordinate something with the people in the school. And again, if you've got the extra day in the calendar, that's one thing, that's not a problem. If you don't have the extra day in the calendar, it's not as if there's not going to be any security. Because as I understand it, now the police officer is essentially in the booth outside the school?
Correct, and it's maybe not an indication of a problem like at a larger school, but out of the elementary schools that are polling places, where the police officer stands, greets visitors, screens visitors on their way in, is within 100 feet of the designated polling door.
Anything else? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. After we make a motion we are going to go into closed session for items of discussion for the reasons.
For personnel, attorney-client privilege, and property issues pertaining to your 22-23 budget.
and we will not be returning after that session. There will be no action taken place.
Correct. You need a motion.
I'll accept the motion to go into closed session. I'll make the motion, and I'll look for a
I'll
second.
second it.
All right. Roll call, Joe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are going into closed session at 8:17.
We're going to stay here, we're going to go.
No, going across.